What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 38 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and what a great weekend of racing and also all things sports coming up this weekend for sure. Not only are we going to be covering a little bit something new for us, we're going to be covering Thursday racing. For all you know that Kentucky Downs does not have racing this Friday or last Friday for that matter, but we'll be covering Thursday's card as the flagship show tomorrow, which is at a new special time, which I'll talk about in a second, is going to cover Saturday at Kentucky Downs for their flagship day with $6 million races. But guys, welcome in. Thank you guys so much for joining the show. I saw there's a bunch of people waiting in the wings there, waiting for us to go live. So I really do appreciate it. But we're going to go pretty quick through the peripherals, as not only are we going to be talking about Kentucky Downs and their late pick 5 on Thursday, we're also going to be covering NFL Week 1 and everything that is included in with the fanfare and everything. Obviously, the first game is tomorrow night, which then leads into my next point, which is tomorrow, the flagship show with Howard, Pete, and Paul covering Kentucky Downs on Saturday. Their late pick 5, all stakes, all over $1 million, might I add. I'm sure they'll cover the sixth stake as well as they usually do. $6 million plus races will be covered at Kentucky Downs on Saturday on this podcast channel tomorrow night at a new time of 7:15 Eastern, I believe. So Howard can relay that in the chat and in a second here, but I believe the new time is 7:15 p.m. Eastern time to kind of balance out with the football schedule coming up here in the fall and winter. But guys, if you're new here and you aren't subscribed yet, please go down below the video player and hit subscribe. And while you're on there, smash that like button. As our very astute viewer, Steven Vanderbrook, says, good evening, and smash that like button. Greatly appreciate it. So Howard just texted me now. He says 7:15 tomorrow, just because of the earlier start time for Thursday Night Football, but it'll be 7:30 Eastern time going forward. So they will be moving it up 45 minutes to 7:15 tomorrow, but then every single week after that will be at 7:30 Eastern time. Howard, thanks for letting me know. But like I was continuing, down below, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it. I only see 13 likes. We got more people than that in here. Please hit that like button. But if you're more of an audio listener, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor is not only where we post every single episode of Bettin N Boozin to those audio platforms, but every single episode that goes up on the HHH Racing Podcast channel, you will find it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Anchor. But sadly, the Saratoga Power Picks are no more, as Saratoga has gone away for the winter, but the Power Picks still go strong every single week. You get 2 tracks every single weekend for $15.99 a month, which comes out to $4 a weekend. That's only $4 for 2 full tracks of spot plays, full card ABC grids, price plays, everything you need to be a successful bettor on the weekends, mainly on Saturday. Go to patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. If you aren't subscribed already, you're definitely missing out. Again, patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. And then if you want to see anything about us or any earlier editions of the Power Picks, if you're not sure yet about, which I'm not sure why you are, but if you're not sure about buying, please go to hhhracingpodcast.com to see those. But guys, we're going to bring on one of my co-hosts. Sadly, Patrick got stuck at work, so unfortunately he will not be here for tonight's show, but I still do have the NFL guru himself to talk about everything NFL, and of course everything with Kentucky Downs this Thursday from Ohio State University, Charlie Freeman. And we have a guy waiting in the wings here who's gonna have a little bit of explaining to do. As you know, the boss man came on Wednesday night, Charlie, and he said that he has a pick of the pick of the year, pick of the meet, everything. But there are a few excuses for him, but I'm going to bring him on and let him talk about it. We don't have to, wait any longer. The boss man himself, Howard Kravitz. Howard, how you doing?
Yeah, he's going to be boozing all right. I'll tell you that. After what happened, he's going to be boozing with us. I'll tell you that much.
Boozing and not losing, right?
Oh boy. Good evening, guys. How are we doing?
I'm doing good, man.
I will be on for a very short amount of time. I want to come on here and eat some crow because I said I would. Churchtown last Saturday, one of my best picks of the year, was awful, horrendous, brutal. It was absolutely horrible. Listen, guys, when you make a lot of picks and you go public and you have enough guts just to go for it, sometimes you're going to be wrong. I was completely wrong, like way wrong. However, I do want to say one other thing. It's not like he ran a flat fourth or just was, okay. The winner got a 95 buyer, guys. Annapolis didn't win. We'll talk about that in a second. Churchtown didn't get a 93 buyer. He didn't get a 85 buyer. Keep going down. Not a 60, not a 30. He got a 2. He got a 2 buyer. Guys, honestly, something obviously went wrong. Okay, I think the horse is okay. I haven't heard anything. He was wide the whole way. Julian never could get him covered up. He was indecisive. I don't blame Julian Leperoux for this, though. He was just awful, and it was a bad pick. And I got to come on the show and call it like it is. I do want to say one thing, guys, though, and I think probably the most important takeaway of all this is trying to beat a heavy favorite. I mean, that's really the big take out of this, not because that's what I want the take to be, but I think a bigger story really is not that Churchtown finished last. I mean, it's a story for me, guys, because he was awful and that was my top pick. But as we go ahead and show, if you want to go ahead and show the, Kyle? Or
you do, you should, but I'll bring it up right now.
Okay, so if you guys here's the final result, and hats off to you, Kyle, who you liked Ancient Rome a little bit. I mean, got 95, and Charlie, you said how bad this field was for a $2 million race, and yeah. And then, of course, there's my boy down there. Should we take a look at his PPs there a second? I mean, okay, obviously something went wrong. I mean, clearly, right? So I don't know what happened. But here's the thing, guys. I went on and on about Annapolis, too, to be fair to me, right? And I didn't like Annapolis, and Charlie said Annapolis should trounce his field. And, Charlie's a very sharp guy, and he's right a lot of the times. But I didn't have a good feeling. Annapolis, guys, regressed to an 87. Now, he did have a little bit of trouble in the stretch, but there was a hole that was there, and he just never got through, guys. And we're not going to go in depth in this race, but the bottom line is Annapolis finished 5th and regressed to an 87, like I thought he would. I just had the wrong horse, to beat him. So listen, congratulations anyone at Ancient Rome out there. It was a bad $2 million race, and Churchtown was awful. If he's healthy and runs back again, I might pick him. That's just the way horse racing goes, guys. And sometimes you got to take some chances. But most importantly, you have to find bad favorites. There's a horse called Wit who ran Monday at Saratoga, who was 7-5 coming back for Pletcher, was awful. Awful. I didn't like him at all. The workouts were and he was a big favorite. So for everyone out there, whether you're young or old, experienced or not experienced, expert, novice, try to beat favorites or try to find ways to beat favorites if there are ways out there. And Annapolis was absolutely a horse to go against. Churchtown just was awful, and I was wrong. There we go. Feel free to make fun of me, everyone.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
He was right, but he was wrong, but the philosophy is there. So, Howard, it takes a lot, obviously it's your podcast, but it still takes a lot to get on camera and admit when you're wrong. So, but look, like you said, you had the right philosophy, trying to beat Annapolis, just, like you said, ended up doing it with the right horse. And a horse doesn't necessarily go from 3 straight 90s to a 2 for no reason whatsoever. So, something went wrong or whatever happened, but like you said, the philosophy is there. But Howard, like I said, I appreciate you coming on and eating your words a little bit. That's always a fun time.
I just want to clarify, tomorrow night's show is 7:15 Eastern starting time. The reason why, guys, is we have the one and only Matt Bernier from FanDuel and NBC Sports, and he's actually on air. So we want to accommodate him, of course, because he's working a long day on air. So we're running 7:15 tomorrow. It's going to be a great show. All the big stakes for Saturday Kentucky Downs. And then after that, on following Thursdays, we will start half an hour earlier to try to get out a little before at the beginning of the NFL starting games at 8:20 on Thursday night. So 7:15 tomorrow night, 7:30 after that. Appreciate all your support. Thanks for watching. I'll let you guys go. Have a great show, guys.
Thanks, Howard. Appreciate it. Have a good night, man.
Hey, nothing from Charlie at all? Charlie, I don't want to see anything.
No. I got a bunch of stuff to talk about on the show. I'm saving my voice, saving my thoughts for when we get on. Trust me, we got sports coming late. There's some strong opinions coming.
Smart man. Thanks, Kyle. Take care,
Love
Charlie.
it.
See you guys.
See you, Howard. But again, you brought himself on. No, it's all good. But again, Howard, he's eating his words a little bit, so it takes some balls to come back on and do it. So
the one benefit I will say to give him credit is, my God, I learned the hard way. Kentucky Downs is just such a difficult track to
there you go.
There's nothing like
Will
it, folks.
Craig, thanks so much for doing the show,
all
man.
I'll say, anybody, watch any replay you want. Doesn't matter what the race is. Just watch any race at Kentucky Downs if you've never seen a race there before. Like, that was the first Kentucky Downs card I ever fully watched. And every race I still got surprised, oh my God, what is happening? And the way with the cameras and the technology, it was a very chaotic day. A lot of stuff was just going crazy.
I mean, absolutely it was, but that's the Downs for it. It's Kentucky Downs. It has a magical thing in a lot of people's hearts for the right and the wrong reasons. But guys, I'm going to go over it. There's so many people here. Thank you guys so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. Ralph Conti is here. He had Nutella Fella. Now that's a good pick, Ralph. If you like that horse, you definitely cash big. Congrats to you, Ralph, and thanks so much for joining the show. Richard Avalar is here. Mr. Carl Spackler spanked him again. Absolutely, Richard. Thanks so much for doing the show. As I am a big Carl Spackler fan, and that wasn't necessarily the hardest to field by any means. But Michael Lawson is here. Thanks so much for joining the show. Marco Lou is here. Rodney Evans is here. And I completely agree with you, man. Trying to find a small track, and it's hard. Ever since Arlington was the track that we were all in tune with, and that's gone away. But I always find it so much easier to try and play one track and just really focus on what's going on, if there's biases forming or anything like that. But I completely get it, Rodney. Thanks so much for joining the show. Richard Avalar says, "Who's your team? The Bears?" Of course, it's the Bears. But I'll tell you what, it isn't. It isn't the Cubbies. That's for sure. I'm a White Sox man through and through. Robin is here getting the Miller Lite cold. I showed it on the camera earlier. Absolutely, we're getting the Miller Lite cold. Rob, thanks so much for joining the show. The 6 did win, Michael. And then Charles B is here. Thanks so much for joining the show, man. And everybody else that is here. Penn State Scott, more worried about his Ohio State team as they look like crap. But we'll go.
Hold on. The whole Big Ten looked terrible. Michigan won 30-3 against East Carolina, and I don't want to hear it. Wisconsin struggled against Buffalo. Penn State needed a miracle cover against West Virginia, and Ohio State's defense looked great against the worst Indiana offense I've ever seen. And Kyle McCord is an awful quarterback, and I hate him. And I think Notre Dame's going to beat us by 50. But I digress. The ACC looks great. We'll get to sports later. The whole Big Ten is in shambles. They all look terrible. USC is going to lose, and I can't wait for that to happen. But let's get to the horse.
Michigan was out on a jog, bro. They didn't have to. What do they have to do?
Oh my God! I don't want.
JJ McCarthy threw for 80%, two or three touchdowns.
Against two
easy
stars,
game,
1 star, walk on.
Out for a jog, bro. He's out for a jog. All right, we're getting to the horse racing, guys.
Let's get to the
again.
Horse
Thanks so
racing.
much for joining the show, everybody. Greatly appreciate it. But the late pick 5 on Thursday, Kentucky Downs starts in race number 6. It is an allowance race, 180,000, going 6.5 furlongs on their turf. As always, draws a full field of 12 as I bring it on the screen right now. The morning line favorite is the number 3, Poria Comet for Joe Talamo and Paulo Lobo. Second choice is Gallon of Rush for Clement. And the third choice is the Illinois bred, or Irv, I believe is how you say that name. It's a good one. I know Charlie's going to make me pronounce it every time, but I believe it is Irv for Chris Block and Jareth Loveberry, both Arlington legends, as we say. But Charlie, as I bring up the picks right now, you are going with the Arlington legends and the Illinois bred Irv in this spot.
Yeah, got to stay loyal to my roots. I remember, I think it was actually you in particular. We covered this horse before. I think maybe was this when the horse ran against Caravel, or maybe it was, I know for a fact, I think that was what it was. I know there was a race that we covered with this horse because I believe it was you who was on this horse. One of us, it wasn't me, was on this horse. But I remembered saying that this was a horse that I did acknowledge to you guys that could give Caravel trouble. And honestly, to an extent did. I mean, only lost by 3 lengths. Then came back after that figure, won, but at a cold pace to take advantage of it. And then comes back and freaks with a 9, relatively, I guess, with a 98, which is, a career best. And now picks up Jareth Loveberry again, who's been on this horse plenty of times with, great success, is working very forwardly with a 48-3. And, honestly, I just feel like this horse could get away. I feel like the other speed in this race, the horses aren't that talented. I mean, you see there's a Wesley Ward in this race that I have nowhere. That should tell you at home. Those watching how I think about that horse, because I pretty much have a Wesley Ward horse somewhere in my top 3 every time the horse is there.
Yep.
And then the other contenders for me,
Well,
I just
here,
feel like
Charlie, real quick, don't mean to cut you off right now, but
no, you're good.
Paul Halloran put out to put it out right now. There are a lot, and obviously Kentucky Downs is very good about putting out their early scratches. And here you go. 1, 2, 3, 6, 10, 11. So obviously my 3 is out. The 6 that all of us liked is out. So we are, and Haughty's out, man. We are out there right now.
Okay. Oh, wait. So this 4 is going to be a massive favorite.
Yep. But please go ahead, finish your.
All right, well, I mean, that kind of killed the point that I was going to make, but it was basically just going to be the fact that I think the 3 is in a really weird position, and I was curious what you were going to say because I don't like the 3 at all. I think the figures are great, and I think the horse will come top 3. I just don't think the 3 quite has the speed of the 4 and doesn't really show strong enough closing ability. And I kind of thought the 6 would come in underneath and finish strong, but doesn't have enough early speed to get there quite in time, and the figures kind of indicate that.
Which is what I thought.
So I kind of thought this race would set up perfectly for the 4, and you would get a decent price because people would bet other horses. But now I think you're going to get the 4 at 2 to 1 or lower because the other 2 main contenders are gone.
Yeah, I mean, this whole race turns on its head now. There's no also eligibles in this race. So this field of 12 now turns into a field of what, 6, right? Because there's 6 scratches. Yeah, that is rough. Paul says the 3 is entered on Saturday, which I'm assuming will run for more money, which is why the 3 is choosing off. But Paul, thanks again for bringing that up because now I have them to my left that will go after. As race number 8 also has a lot of scratches, but we'll go over that as we get into it. I would have to go with Irv as my top pick. That's who I obviously had second and who I thought had a very good chance to win. But now it kind of just comes down to who else is going to be, coming in. Then I'll go with this as well. I will go. Let's see. Sorry, guys. We're kind of doing this on the fly here just because we didn't know that this was going to happen. But I'll go.
This is tough.
But I'm going to go 4, 8, 11, I guess, in this spot. Irv just makes the most sense. She's got really good tactical speed, which is something that I really like to have at Kentucky Downs. And being that there's only 6 horses in this race, being tactical is going to be the utmost necessity. There's not too many horses now in this race who want to send out for the lead. So the 5 is in the spot, has really no
1 will. I mean, the 1's going to send because the
1's out too.
Ward.
The 1's out too.
Oh no. Okay. Well, I'll go 4. Oh wait, and wait.
Yeah, it's 1, 2, 3, 6, 10, 11.
Yeah, and you have the
11's out.
Oh my god.
10 is what I meant. I meant the 10. I meant the 10.
No, the 10's out too. And if it makes you feel any better, I was about to tell you to put the 10 and the 11 as my next 2, and they're out.
This
too.
Is over. Okay.
Okay, I'm just going to keep this simple. All the horses that were good besides the 4 are out. All the second tier contenders that I would have replaced the 4 are out. So the 4 is going to win this race. I'm not going to pull a boss man and make it a play of the year because I feel like that would be really soft of me to do that now that all the contenders are out. So basically, folks, you're going to have the 4 who's now going to probably go off at like even money at best. Now that I know that all the minor contenders are out. And you basically have the 4 running up against a bunch of 20 to 1 horses. So you're just going to have to figure out which of those 20 to 1s is going to come in underneath to pay out to make some money, since the 4 is going to go off at 1 to 1.
This is so insane. I'm like I said, guys, I apologize because this just happened completely on the fly. Hey, what do you mean less boozing? This is a completely turned on its head, Paul.
I was going to say, but there might need to be more after that.
Yeah, kidding at this point.
Oh
but
my God.
So going through, I think Irv with the tactical speed definitely sits the best trip. I'm going to go. The 8 Super Munnings has shown that, especially last 2 at Ellis Park at 5.5, has the ability to close. Has gone 7 before, has won at 7 at Woodbine. And we all know about Woodbine. They also have a very kind of weird layout for their track. So I think coming over and getting a little bit extra ground is not going to hurt this mare too much, being out of Elin Wilkes and Declan Cannon, who's when he gets on, bigger price horses, obviously it won't be in this spot anymore. But you always got to respect when Declan Cannon gets on. And then the other horse I thought was interesting, going through it really quickly, might I add, was the number 5 New Boss for Brett Calhoun and Ray Lou Gutierrez. Those last 2 races at Churchill and Ellis going 5.5, was able to close pretty and only lost to a neck to Super Munnings. Obviously, was 2 3/4 back to Caravel at Churchill on Derby Day. But this horse has gone longer, hasn't shown to be proficient too much at long distances, but when it comes down to it, there's not too many horses that are going to be willing. There's not too many good horses really that are left in this race.
I'll throw the 9 in. I'll put the 9 underneath. The 9 only is a dirt
that's
horse.
The other one.
Here's my thought process. The reason I'm just going to throw the 9 in, yes, it's because all the other contenders and then second tier contenders, like, if you do your ABC grids, all my 2 other A's are out, and now the B's that I was going to throw in 10 and 11 are out. So now we're looking to the C's. And my thought process with putting the 9 underneath the 4 is this horse is clearly the best of the rest for who's left. It's just the problem is this horse runs on the dirt, not the turf. So I'm just going to bank on that this horse moving over to the turf won't regress enough to be as bad as the 20-1 horses. That's my thought process. And I also like that this horse likes to be a stalker, which helps when my top pick is a speed horse. So we'll go 4-9, and then whoever else makes it to the gate, whoever else actually gets them.
And of course, when you guys know, I post everything on Twitter. So if you guys want my final picks when I go back through this race, at AP Roscoe K is where you can find me on Twitter, and everything will be posted tomorrow on Twitter. So be a lookout for that. The other horse that's in the race that's a little interesting, Steven Vanderbroek brings her up. A pretty heavily raced 3-year-old, was raced at 2 from Asmussen, won pretty convincingly on the dirt, and just never could get up into that stakes company. Puts her on turf in the limestone, which is a very tough spot. Obviously, Love Reigns, Lady Hollywood, My Sweet Affair. Comes back to Indiana, wins at 5 furlongs. You just don't know if she's going to be ready to stretch out. But last year, I mean, look, she went 6.5 for Kentucky Downs and only lost to a nose to American Apple, who's also a very nice horse in her own right, who's been racing in grade 3 company and obviously won the matron last at Belmont/Aqueduct. But that's one horse to keep in mind as well, as she has gone this distance before at Kentucky Downs, has run very well and obviously has improved since then. Sorry, guys, again for that kind of really hard turn into this. But we are going. I'm going to go 4-8-5, but I also think the 12 is interesting.
I'll go 4-9-8.
Went 4-9-8 is what he is going to go. Again, once again, apologies for the quick turnaround, but that was thrown on our heads at the last second. But
guys, any other races we're covering that are getting like?
Yeah, we'll go through it. I'll go through it as we go on.
Okay.
But race number 7 is the next race we are going to talk about. It's a maiden special weight, $150,000, going 1 5/16 miles on the turf. And at Kentucky Downs, that is a very long distance. Draws a full field of 12 again, 2 also eligibles. The horses that are scratched in this race early is the number 8 Abbreviation, 30-1 for Bejarano, and both also eligibles. King's Secret, who I thought was interesting if she got in, and then Libretto for Rosario and Maker. And I'm going to bring up the picks right now for race number 7. And Charlie, we actually have the same pick on top, going with the number 4 Lady Claypool, who is the morning line favorite for Irad and Mike Maker.
Yeah, I mean, going to be a common trend as people see throughout this card. The number 4, just tends to be the right horse in a lot of these races. Almost went 5 for 5 for me. Didn't quite. To be honest, this is the one actually one of my stronger plays of the sequence. And honestly, I don't even know, I know this isn't exactly what the viewers want to hear, if it's that Lady Claypool is like just some unbelievable horse. I think it's more so just one of those races where if you just look at the horses around, no horse is really anywhere near Lady Claypool's level. A lot of them just haven't run that well. A lot of them tend to fade. This is a big race stretching out to 1 5/16 miles for all these horses. But on top of that, we also have to consider the fact that, with the way Kentucky Downs is, shaped, you've talked about this before, that whatever the distance is, it really for these horses tends to feel even longer than that. And so, Lady Claypool, I like the experience overseas. I like the fact that the horse has run 1 1/4 and 1 1/8, which is more than any other horse in this field has been able to do, and actually, ran respectable, positioning in that, and ran a decent 73 for the first time on the U.S. I think we'll take a step forward. Love Maker with Irad. The horse is working absolute bullets especially for a horse that's more for distance, with a 37-4 and 48-4. Again, picks up Irad. I really just think this gets the Lasix and blinkers on. I think Lady Claypool has no excuses not to win this race.
There's 2 things. This is a tough race. Don't get me wrong, but there's 2 things that I really like about Lady Claypool. Is last time out, first time over in the States, for Maker, who's not necessarily the best with foreign shippers, runs very well, runs a 73 buyer, which is very comparable to other horses in this field, has been working at Saratoga. So she's had multiple spots where this horse can go. Maker chooses to wait, goes to Kentucky Downs, possibly banking on the British form that this horse has, but puts the blinkers on, going a little bit longer, which I think will suit her. If you watch that last replay, which unfortunately we can't show it since it was at Colonial, she was very willing to come up. She cut the corner very well, as it says in the notes right there, and closed willingly. I'm very interested at this horse going a little bit longer with the blinkers on, hopefully to get a little bit more into the race, and hopefully to have a little bit more of a closing kick. I really like Lady Claypool, not Chase Claypool, Lady Claypool at a morning line, hopefully of what we get of 3-1, and hopefully she doesn't take too much IRAD money. But of course, there's not too many races underneath. You can see Rodaballo, who was a very nice miler and kind of 7 furlong type horse. So not really meant for distance, but I mean, winning stakes in the UAE and stuff like that, not UAE, and France and all those in Spain. So she was a very nice horse he was a very nice horse. That's strike 1 for me today. He was a very nice horse in his own right. So looking for Lady Claypool to improve second off coming to the States. Charlie, you have the number 5 English in second, who I actually don't have anywhere. I didn't think this horse was going to be 7-2, but very interesting coming off a layoff and off a trainer switch to Jonathan Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, obviously losing Chad Brown as a trainer, some things people might get concerned about. Some won't. I was a little surprised of the horse just because, I don't know, again, from a figures perspective, in a race where most horses haven't really shown any sort of interest or ability, and a lot of them, tend to kind of suggest that the distance won't be a good thing for them. I think this is a great thing for English. For me, this was the only other horse I really saw that I was like, okay, you know what, maybe this one could, do some damage and potentially upset the 4. I mean, I don't see it happening. I think the 4 will probably go off at like 8-5-ish and will end up winning convincingly. But I think English is the one that stands out. The horse is lightly raced only 2 times, coming off a decent layoff from mid-April, and showed some good interest. Got bumped as it noticed or shows in the notes, but then had that strong late game, was kind of just out of it for a while. And then, I mean, we don't need to show the replay, but it was kind of just out of the race, and then showed great interest with a late gain. And I just think, I think distance will only help this horse. I think if the horse can, sit that same kind of trip, maybe a little bit closer and then go by, I think the main thing will just come down to, which is what worried me, is I think English will be right around in the field where Lady Claypool is, and I think Lady Claypool is a stronger kick. But if English gets the jump, I think English, who I think also you'll get every bit of that 7-2, could surprise at least a more value price.
Yeah, no, and that's absolutely just coming off the trainer switch from Chad Brown, running at Tampa, now to Jonathan Thomas off a longer layoff. Hasn't really been working extremely well, but the numbers are very comparable for a lightly raced 3-year-old. Jonathan Thomas is 5 for 31 off the trainer switch in the last 5 years. So that's about 18%, which is not bad at all. So English could definitely be live. This is one to look at the board for me to see whether English is taking that 7-2 money off the layoff, or she is going to be a little bit or floating a little bit at the price. I went with the number 2 Sri Lanka in second, Brendan Walsh, Tyler Gaffleone. In my opinion, the dynamic duo when it comes to Kentucky racing, let alone Kentucky Downs itself. You can see these last two at Churchill, and then the last one at Ellis, going 1 1/8, goes 1 1/4, takes the lead in an off the turf race, and actually doesn't necessarily get the win, but ran very well 1 1/4 off the turf. Now comes back onto the turf, should show a little bit, not more speed. I think she kind of just inherited the lead. I don't know necessarily think she wants the lead. I think she's going to sit sort of mid pack, and if she can get covered up and get a nice lane at the top of the stretch, I really am interested in Sri Lanka, at least underneath in my horizontals, barring that you don't get less than 9-2 or 5-1. But Charlie, you went with the number 7 in third, Bolt Toro, for Mark Cassie, and Bashizzle, my nizzle, whose only win at the meet is still with part of the Copper Missile fan club. But Bolt Toro is very interesting underneath, at least.
Yeah, and I also thought it was interesting because I thought this was a little more of, like a long shot, but just trying to play in the fact that it's a Mark Cassie horse, and Patrick has this horse second. Wish he could have, been here to explain it, but I'll kind of give my angle. Was, again, just another closer where the figures certainly fit. I mean, the 0 for 9 is concerning, but at the very least, I mean, the horse is still winning the money 6 out of 9 times. So it's not like the horse is doing poorly. The horse loves being in and around there, has plenty of experience with the jockey. And I just ultimately believe that Bull Toro, could just get the first jump on the 4 and the 5. And according to the figures, at least has a stronger kick. My concern ultimately was this horse is, again, just seems to like to finish second or third and not get the job done. But hey, at 10-1, you put Bull Toro under the 4 or whatever horse anybody in the chat feels strong is going to win this race, and you're getting a lot of value at 10-1 underneath. And I think because it's Mark Casse, I don't think you're getting 10-1 in this field. It'll probably be closer to 7 or 8-1, but still plenty of value in the underneath. And real quick on the 2, because, I love Tyler G, and I was thinking about it. My only concern is the horse for me personally is just becoming too much of a money burner. I mean, you look, the horse was $2.30, $2.91. I think the reason the horse inherited the lead, the horse was 54 cents. I think the horse inherited the lead simply because the competition was so weak, and she still couldn't get the job done. So for me, that's just one. I don't think, because a lot of people in the chat are pointing out how good Tyler is here with Brandon Walsh, that the horse will certainly, in my eyes, at least get bet down to probably like 4-1. I don't want to touch the horse.
Look, I get it. This horse has been favorited twice, or shown favoritism twice, and was 3-1 another time. Just 3 seconds and a fourth, losing by 2 lengths. This is where you kind of start to question whether this horse has a nose for the wire. But I think if any time, this would be the time at Kentucky Downs where Tyler rides really well. I'm thinking it could be for Sri Lanka. If not, I think strike 2. She is a must-use underneath for me. We're already at 2, dude. I'm going to run out of beer at this point, but I want the number 9, Dixie Supreme, in third for Connor Murphy. Flavian Pratt. This is just one of those horses for me. She does look slow on paper, but with a little bit of added distance, I think if the pace does fall apart, I think Dixie Supreme could be one to pick up the pieces late. I think she has a decent closing kick as compared to her early foot, so she's going to be towards the back of the field early. Flavian, if there's one guy that knows how to navigate a turf race, I would definitely have my trust in Flavian Pratt, but she's just going to have to need a little bit of pace ahead of her, and I'm sure with this type of field, she will get it. I'm going 4-2-9. Charlie's going 4-5-7. And one thing I want to touch on before we move on, Noah Maher's in the chat. Thanks so much, Noah, for joining the show, man. Greatly appreciate this. It must include 3 on all your horizontals. I was taking a look at the 3 for a while. Blame the Stars for Gerardo Corrales and Joe Sharp. Coming off a switch from Shannon Ritter to Joe Sharp, I could only assume is an upgrade, although Joe in the last 5 years is only 9 for 92 off the trainer switch, so less than 10%, which is, of course, not ideal. But second off the second time out of a Galileo mare could definitely relish in the extended distance. And if this race were to fall apart, this would be another one for me to pick up the pieces. Blame the Stars is definitely interesting as well. This race is just really hard, to be honest with you. And the fact that we're pretty similar in a lot of our picks is, it's obviously we're either going to be really right or we're going to be really wrong. But
with Kentucky Downs, you never know. We're going to find
that's true.
It's good value. I don't know. I just think kind of what you were saying. I think the horse might just need a race. It's not like the horse is coming off some crazy layoff, but I just don't think this is the spot the horse wins. But absolutely, again, as I've been saying with the 7 and other horses, if you feel as strong about the 4 as Kyle and I do, and since I think the horse will be bet down, there's a lot of great, because this is a tough race, a lot of great prices you could find to put underneath to make some good money.
No, absolutely. I'm laughing at Mike Lawson's take in the chat. I love that. That's funny. But again, I'm going 4-2-9. Charlie's going 4-5-7, and Patrick, who I didn't mention last time because for some reason I forgot he was.
It's because the whole field scratched. So
that's true. Yeah, Patrick's going 4-7-2. Switching over to race number 8, which is the middle leg of the late pick 5, is allowance optional claiming 62.5, purse $170,000, going 7 furlongs, of course, on the turf course. There's no dirt course, obviously, and the big scratches out of this race: the number 3, Peruvian Lucky; the number 6, Zatip; the number 7, Santos Dumont; the number 12, American Mayhem; and then the also eligibles 13, 16, the number 14 and 15 run, and the number 14 is the one you really need to take a look at for your picks. But we'll move into it right here. And obviously, again, this is the first time we're seeing these scratches, so I'll leave it up to you, Charlie, if you want to make any choices. But we actually have the same, and this one's not a ticker apparently. So hold on, I'm making it one.
Somehow all our horses made it out unscathed, but the problem is now that all these also entries are coming in.
Well, there's one that I would definitely need to include, but you're going with the number 4 on top, which is Fair Dinkum, who had a very big performance last time out.
Yeah, ran an incredible race. I will say, I do think the only knock I guess I would have real quick to address on the 14, and look, I get it. Irad, Michael Maker, the horse and co. The one worry I have is I know it runs longer here, but this horse, I think, really likes being at a mile or a mile and a 16th. And we're talking about a deep closer, and now we're going to 7 furlongs. That's why I really like the 4 horse so much, is that for me, the main contenders in this field like to sit back a little more, whether it's as a stalker or as a closer, whereas the 4 is going to be at the front of the stalkers. And I think Fair Dinkum's just going to get the absolute, I mean, as long as he doesn't get Joel Rosario, I think we'll get the perfect trip, and took freaked off the layoff and ran an incredible figure, which is ridiculous off that big of a layoff to take that big of a step forward. Was incredible for Joe Sharp. Credit to him for having this horse ready. But yeah, I just think the distance is a huge benefit for the 4. I think the 4, again, this is one of those where the horse is just going to get the best trip, in my opinion. I think out of all the contenders is going to be by far the furthest up to get the right, jump on the rest of the field. So yeah, that's why I think the 4 is going to win this race, even with the entries. I think I'd have to include the 14 though somewhere. But I'm curious to see what you think of the 4 as well.
No, you would have to. And I had the 4 originally in third, but with the 14 getting in, unfortunately, it just knocks it down a step. This is just one of those horses that ran really well on the yielding track against the horse who I actually have on top, Buoys. But this is just one that I need to see again. I do like the tactical speed that he did show last time out at Saratoga, of course. But after that 88 buyer coming off that long of a layoff, which could be very telling, but I'm willing to take a shot against with horses who I think are even a little bit better, even though I do think the 4, I'd have to respect that last race from the 4. I went with the number 10, Buoys on top, who you have in second, Charlie. So I'll talk about mine and I'll leave it to you. But that last time out at Saratoga, Oisin Murphy rode just very good run. I wouldn't say a perfect trip by any means, but was very, very interesting coming up and just couldn't reach Fair Dinkum, who, of course, had the jump on Buoys. But he's a very deep closer. Brennan Walsh, Gaffleone again. But I think this horse could be better with firmer ground as well. And it coming onto a track that's 7 furlongs, but again, plays more like a mile and a 16th. The distance doesn't worry me at all. I love the outside post. Blinkers on again, of course, or blinkers on for this one, which I think could keep him in the fight longer down the stretch. I really am interested in Buoys to win this race, and you'll see later how strong I do feel on Buoys. But Charlie, you have this horse in second. Feel free to touch on anything that I didn't have.
Yeah, no, you basically just covered it. So I'll talk on a different horse. The one thing I want to say is I would update my picks to 4, 14, 8. However, since Patrick is the 8 on top, which I think is bold and I love it, and I still like the horse, since I don't think there's much to talk about the 14, I do want to talk about the 8. But yeah, so my updated picks for everybody listening and watching would be 4, 14, 10 with the new updated field. However, I still feel very strong about this 8. I love the value. Edgar Zayas with Joseph Jr. These guys tend to work a lot together at Gulfstream, now working together here at Kentucky Downs. The horse, again, just kind of, I think, will sit a very similar trip to the 4, and that's why I think the 8 is so interesting for a price, is I do think, like, for me, if I play this race on its own, I'll probably be playing an exacta with the 4 over the 8 in some way, because I just think you have a case where, for me, I think the 8 is one of the main 4 contenders. I'm curious to see what you think about the 8. And I just kind of see it for me with the main 4 contenders, that the 10 and 14 are going to be way at the back and closing hard and closing heavy late, and kind of just hoping to bank on the fact that it's Kentucky Downs making the 7 furlongs feel long enough that they can get there. And then it's going to be the 14 or the 4 and the 8 that get the first jump on the speed. And I think those two could be battling it out down the stretch. Ultimately, I guess the reason I have this horse a little bit lower is, obviously primarily only runs at Gulfstream, so I don't know how the switch is going to go for the horse. However, the horse did run once at Kentucky Downs and got the win going a mile, which is certainly something of note. And then I guess the only other slight concern is I just don't know if the horse will repeat the figures coming off of the layoff from March. But if the 8 does, I think Axum could certainly run a solid race at a great figure or a price.
No, now I choke on myself. I think he has a really big shot. Obviously, Patrick does too. Patrick has this horse on top. He's just very consistent. Last 2 were at 5 furlongs, but this horse has won at distance before, so the distance at Kentucky Downs doesn't turn me off this horse at all. Obviously, as Charlie pointed out, did break his maiden at Kentucky Downs at 3 years old in the same meet, just a little bit earlier in the days. But kind of consistent around that mid 80s buyer, hasn't been able to take that step forward. And that was ultimately why I kind of left him off my ticket, was because it almost seems like this horse we've seen this horse's potential. And I understand he's 4 and he's coming off a layoff where he's working pretty decently over at Palm Meadows, but I don't know how much more that we're going to see from him. There is a lot of very nice horses in his running line as well. Up to the Mark, Bay Street Money, Growth Capital, Bay Street Money again, Balkanov. There's a lot of very nice horses in the running line. So I think that will lead Axelm to take a little bit more money than maybe what he deserves in this spot. And he's definitely to be respected, but coming off a layoff for Safi, bringing him here, it's going to need to see a good race from him before I'm willing to take a shot. I actually went with a little bit more of a price underneath in the number 9, Underdressed, who ran a big one at Indiana, 2 back, just losing to Charlie's favorite horse of all time, Me and Mr. C, which I actually watched that horse run in person. He got a really nice trip that day and just couldn't get the job done. Shortening up a little bit to 7 furlongs, I think. Obviously, we know it plays. I like to think it plays a little bit longer, but 1, the distance isn't an issue. 2, this horse will be forwardly placed. And if no one's going to be running from the back, Underdressed is going to be one that you're going to need to have. This one's with Leparoux, who I think does his best running from the front end. So it just almost seems like this horse could really trip out in a spot like this at a really nice price of 8-1. And if not to win, could hopefully to stay in the money to cash on your underneath exactas and tries. Christopher D'Souza, thanks so much for joining the show, man. I'm not sure I've seen your name before. Thanks so much for joining in. He actually likes the number 15 with the 8-12 try box, is what he said, exactas and try boxes. American Mayhem is a horse for Jimmy DeVito, coming from Ellis Park. I just think he's better, although he did win a non-winners of 2 allowance race at Ellis Park last year. I think Jimmy DeVito thinks he's better going shorter, and his buyers do indicate that, although he has run well. He has run well at a mile and looks to be forwardly placed, which I like. American Mayhem's definitely interesting. And the number 15 is the other one that got in, which we didn't talk about. Solidify for Bejarano and Juan Cano. Just seems more dirt-based. I'm extremely interested to see why Juan takes him over here. But you can see Elaborate, obviously. But the turf routes, this horse from Progeny is 1 for 8. And I know it's technically considered a turf sprint, but at Kentucky Downs going this long, I wouldn't be willing to call it that. Obviously, Tap Time was a horse by Elaborate who won maiden 30-25 at Fairgrounds. And there's no really other turf running line except for her. So this just comes down to the fact I just don't know how well this horse is going to run on the turf, but does run on synthetic. But his best running has been on the dirt. So it'll be interesting to see how he takes to the turf now that he cards in for race number 8. I'm going 10-14-9. Charlie's going 4-14-10. Guys, switching over to the feature on the card. We're going to go through this one and the next one pretty quick, Charlie's. Of course, we have NFL to get to. It is the One Dreamer Stakes, 500,000 going a mile and 70 yards on the Kentucky Downs turf course. The morning line favorite, as I switch over to it right now, it draws a field of 9. The morning line favorite is the number 7 for the flag for Jorge Ruiz and James Toner, who I thought was a very interesting morning line favorite. I understand that the horse is good on buyers, but I have a few questions on the number 7. It's just I don't have the horse anywhere. Charlie has as her in 3rd. But you are going with the number 4, Haughty, who is unfortunately scratched in this race. That is the only scratch for race 9. So Charlie's going to have to make some decisions here. I'm going with the number 5, Via Reggio, for Irad and Brenda Walsh, who I think has a very, very good shot in this race, which I'll talk about in a little. Actually, what we'll talk about right now while we wait for Charlie to update his picks, since the number 4 is scratched out. But number 5, Via Reggio, again, Irad Walsh was 4th in the game, leaving behind Macadamia, Quattrell, and Queen Goddess. That was a very nice race from her, although she didn't really have the kick. There wasn't a whole lot of speed on that day, which is what I really like about her in this spot. I think Irad's going to have her perfectly piloted into a race where there's a decent amount of speed, where if she gets the pace and the figures ahead of her, I think Via Reggio is extremely interesting and an almost must use in a scenario like this. Going back last year to Carra at 1 1/8, she was first by 2 1/4 in a Group 3, beating Juncture, who's come to the States and has run very well. There's just many things that are pointing to yes for me for this horse. Looks to step up to this late low 90s again once she gets the pace to run into. I'm very, very interested in Via Reggio on top, which I would probably say at a nice price of 5-1. Hopefully, it doesn't take too much IRAD money, which we see all the time. But I'm hoping that we get close to that 5-1 and she's able to win at a nice price for all of us. Charlie has just sent in the picks and he is going 8-7-3. Charlie, as I switch over right now, the number 8 is Sister Luann. Safi's the man today for you, eh?
Yeah, this is frustrating. I thought the 4 honestly was going to be the favorite. So when I saw that, Haughty wasn't, I was shocked. I was so excited at that 4-1. That was probably going to be closer in my eyes, at least. I don't know if this is bold or not. To 2-1 is the heavy favorite. I thought Haughty was going to dominate this field. And when we get to the best bets later, I'm going to have to be making a lot of audibles at the line of scrimmage, kind of, a little subtle point to the football part of the segment, just because I was all over this 4 horse. So, if you couldn't tell the common theme, folks, I was all over the number 4 throughout this entire sequence, I guess. But, great. So the 3 might not even run either. So we'll have to see if I have to update that. But, with the 8, what makes it tough, obviously, is just to the inside is For the Flag. Both of these horses are going to want to go. But I just think Sister Luann has more speed. And I think Sister Luann is going to get to the front. I think the horse is working absolutely forwardly with a 35-4, a minute flat, 47-4. So the horse is certainly working forwardly for Safi Joseph Jr. into the spot. Picks up Jose Ortiz, which I really like. Was ridden well by Irad and Luis Saez in the past. It seems kind of straightforward. This horse, just get this horse to the lead and you're good. The one thing I really do like about Sister Luann over For the Flag is kind of taking advantage. You can look, as we've talked about on the show with the colors, has been able to win with the blue figures that you see, obviously meaning it was slow. What I like about Sister Luann is this horse has still managed to hold up. I know the horse didn't quite get the job done, but held up with the red figures right towards the front. You look back on April 12th at Keeneland. So this horse, I feel like out of the 2, if you're like, which one should be able to handle the duel, I would lean towards the 8, and I'll take the value. I don't like 3-1 on the 7 at all. I agree with you. I had the horse 3rd. I thought that I was going to be bold to have the horse that low based off of the morning lines. But if you're letting me pick between those 2, I'll take the more battle-tested Sister Luann at 6-1.
Yeah, I mean, look, Safi definitely could have this horse ready to go. I just don't like. Ran very bad at Kentucky Downs last year with Zayas up. Obviously gets Jose Ortiz here, which is interesting. Obviously Edgard is running the previous race on Safi's horses. So that's very interesting in my opinion, why he doesn't choose on Sister Luann here. Obviously you're getting Jose Ortiz. I'm not saying that's a very good, even some consider an upgrade, even though I think Edgard is very good at what he does. But Sister Luann's just going to be part of that pace completion that I talked about. For the Flag, I'm not sure this horse wants the type of distance, especially if she's going to get tested up front. I'm not sure if For the Flag is going to be that good going 1.70 at Kentucky Downs, which could play more to 1.125. I just don't like For the Flag. I think she's going to be close, if not the morning line favorite, and I'm willing to look other places in this spot especially. And Paul points out a very nice point that I was supposed to mention and I forgot it. This last race at Delaware ran with Parnack, who obviously came back to win the Flower Bowl at Saturday at Saratoga, which obviously is which could be a very big plus to Via Reggio as well, barring of course that she gets the pace to run into. I went the number 3.
All 3 of us had the 3.
Yeah, we all have the 3. Obviously, one thing to keep in mind, she has not been scratched yet, so she could still run in a spot like this, but could scratch as she is cross-entered on Saturday, which according to Robin, she is cross-entered for the ladies marathon. Which there you go. Charlie said if the 3 scratches, put the 5 in 3rd. She's just very consistent, improving on all ends. You see, she actually ran at 1.5 miles and won at Keeneland on the front end. I don't think she necessarily needs the lead by any means. I think Sinfeltre is very tactical and could sit off or could sit on the lead.
We'll have to sit off, in my
but
opinion.
I think she'll have to sit off as well, being on the inside. Although being on the inside could be being on the inside, she could end up going to the lead. Flavian Pratt obviously is going to be the one piloting, and we all have faith in, or most of us have faith in his hands when it comes to turf racing. So
Yeah.
Sinfeltre will definitely get a good spot, most likely just sitting off the pace, and we'll get first run on a horse like Via Reggio.
Yeah.
But I think Sinfeltre is very interesting. I just don't know if she's good enough to win us in a spot like this with horses that are coming from the back bearing down on her. But let's see. Let's go to the chat real quick. Let's see. Marco Lou likes the number 6 in this race. Kate's Kingdom for William Walden. Jack Gilligan. I mean, this horse has been running at Turfway and Woodbine. Just hasn't been able to find the winner so because of late, but the distance shouldn't be any type of issue. You see one at Turfway at a mile and 16th. She just hasn't really hit that top peak of that 92 last year at Woodbine. And you can argue whether she's the same horse or not, but second to Idiomatic in the Latonia, which we all know what Idiomatic did coming back. So Kate's Kingdom could definitely be interesting from a little bit more tactical position as well. And the last one would be Jubilee Bridge for Rob N, the number 1 for Michael Stidham. This last race could be telling at Colonial. She just looks kind of slow on paper, Ron, but if she's able to take if she's able to take a little bit step forward, I think Jubilee Bridge could be interesting, although that could be a big ask coming from the rail at Kentucky Downs. And Marco Lou says the Flower Bowl was a horrible race to compare, and it you can say that, Marco, but beating horses that were in the Flower Bowl, anyone in that, we'll just go to Parnack real quick and we'll look at the race. We'll look at who was in that race here. So Parnack, obviously McCulloch and Amazing Grace. So to Paul's point, which I completely agree with, what would McCulloch be in a race like this? What would Amazing Grace be in this spot? Like 4 to 5? Like I think McCulloch would be at least even money in this spot. So being that, I still think Via Reggio is extremely interesting, and Parnack definitely needs to be a point taken beating horses like that. Even though you can always complain about tactics and stuff like that, I think it's still a point to be taken. I'm going 5-3-4.
I still just can't get over Hawden, man.
I know.
I think the horse would have set the perfect trip. I think
she's running.
That's why I think the 3 could be interesting. I think the horse is going to sit. I think the 3 could sit. Oh, if the 3's even in the race, could sit the trip the 4. And the reason why I would throw the 5, and if they're out, is I would love to see Irad find a way to get this horse to sit a little closer, just because I think the distance could be a problem. It might be too short, even though it is like a track that runs longer. But if a horse could find a way to sit that stalk and trip off the strong contenders that are all speed, I think that's who could honestly end up winning this race. That's the only thing that worries me about my picks is if the 7 and 8 just decide, let's just go gas each other out, and then some long shot flies in late, or the 5 flies in late.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, it's always pace handicapping, right? That's always what we talk about and preach on this show. Absolutely. Again, I'm going 5-3-4. Charlie's going 8-7-3. Patrick's going 8-3-2. Guys, this last race is extremely difficult. It really is. It's tough. A mile. It's going a mile on the turf, main special weight, $150,000. Draws a full field of 12, 4 also eligibles, and I believe I'm going to look it up right now as it went away for some reason. The only horses that are out of this race are the also eligibles mentioned. And Charlie is going 3-6-10, going with the number 3, Judgment, with Rosario Pletcher. I'm going with the number 1, who turns out to be the morning line favorite, Yada Gaffleon. Graham Motion. Yeah, chalk. Yeah, whatever you say. I picked my best bet's going to be that 5-1 horse last race. But okay, Charlie, what do you like most about Judgment?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't have the favorite anywhere, so I'm proud of that. But yeah, for Judgment, honestly, I mean, you see in the comments, hopped and then off slow. So just had a terrible start. And the horse was basically dead from the start. I mean, you look to run a 50 figure, which for this field is right around the tops, and to start off that race 8 lengths off the lead and basically off the debut, just have no chance, and a slow pace. I mean, there was Judgment had no hope, and yet somehow still found a way to cut it to just 2 lengths. I think if this horse gets any sort of clean trip and Joel Rosario just, gets a cleaner trip for this horse for Todd, I think Judgment could honestly, in a race that's so wide open and hard to figure out, this was the one horse for me where I was like, you know what, I think Judgment could just dominate this field. Now, I might be completely wrong. I mean, these are maidens and it's Kentucky Downs. Anything could happen. But I feel like if you look for which horses have excuses, I don't think there's a horse that has more excuses than Judgment for that performance. And any sort of better trip next time out, I think Judgment could definitely win this race. And I'm surprised this horse isn't the favorite. I think this horse might go off as the favorite.
I'm kind of in agreement with you. I think Judgment will most likely go off as the favorite, which is who I expected to be the morning line favorite. But real quick, guys, from the boss himself, we have 30 likes. We have more people watching that. We're watching that here right now. Please go below the video player, hit subscribe and like. We would greatly appreciate it. But Charlie, I'll tell you, this race is just a mess. Obviously, Judgment got off horribly in that race, still closed up very well in a 50 flat half mile. But again, it's a Monmouth. Pletcher doesn't normally go to Monmouth whatsoever. So the fact that he sent Judgment over there is almost telling that, especially for a 2-year-old, for Pletcher, that, she might not be in his top crop, but maybe worked her way in there with that last performance. Judgment is extremely interesting, as I also have her in second. I went with the morning line favorite, number 1, Yada, in first. That last race was just really weirdly run race at Colonial. She was kind of inside and just couldn't really get out, got shuffled, and she made a little bit of a run, but really it wasn't too much. I think just kind of hope, I know she's on the rail again, but a lot longer run to that first turn. I think obviously Colonial is a 2-turn race. I think Yada will definitely benefit going 1 turn. Hopefully can work out a better trip, gets Gaffley aboard. Grand Motion's no stranger to winning at Kentucky Downs. So Yada, I think, is extremely interesting 3rd time out, and hopefully can repair what she did last time out with more of a better trip and better performance. I think Yada is extremely interesting on top and especially underneath. Charlie, you don't have her anywhere, but you're going with the number 6, Clear Copper, in second. And go ahead and finish out your picks and we'll move on to our best bets for football.
Yeah, so I'm kind of interested because Patrick got this horse on top. And to be honest, since you're part of the Copper Missile fan club, I know they have no correlation, but I figured with the horse with the name Copper, you might just out of sympathy throw the horse somewhere in there out of respect. But obviously the last figure wasn't pretty. But for me, it's Asmussen. He's a very well-respected trainer. The 2 races before that one were definitely strong enough figure-wise to win in this field. I know the horse might not have loved a mile, but I also think what made it tough was just ran into a very, very hot pace. The horse, though, is working very well. And honestly, the angle for me is just that I think the other contenders in this race are not fast horses. All the other contenders for me are probably going to be mid-pack or at the back. So I think, again, in these wide open races we've talked about where, there is no consistent dominant horse, I think this is certainly a spot where the 6 might just get away.
Yeah, definitely. Well, no, could be. And Copper Bullet, the funny thing is that the Copper Bullets really haven't run on turf at all. And Charlie, I'm sure you can see where I'm going with this. The only horse that has done well on turf out of Copper Bullet happens to be a horse that people on this podcast own a pretty decent piece of.
That's why I can't believe you didn't put the horse anywhere.
And it's the only one that Copper Bullets had that's run really well. And obviously Unique Ride has good turf running. But Copper Missile, of course, Copper Missile fan club here, but really it's the only one that's run well on turf, and there's really no turf breeding at all. I mean, she is 1 for 2 siblings, 50. But that one was a maiden 16 at Parks going a mile. Yeah. So it's just very weird to me that this horse is being placed on the turf. I'm assuming 1, Asmussen sees something, and 2, for a decent amount of money for Winchell if she even hits the board in this type of race. Clear Copper's interesting, but wouldn't necessarily be my top pick. Would have to see her run well on the turf for me, especially at a lower price of 9-2, 5-1. Charlie, the last horse we'll talk about is Joke Master. Real quick, what were your top opinions on this horse?
Yeah, so honestly, you got Jose Ortiz, you got Michael Maker. It's just a great connection. The horse has only run twice and ran very solid figures in both. I think any sort of repeat of that or step forward is competitive or maybe win this race. Again, another one that'll probably be towards the front and could sit a nice tripping or get away. And I don't think you're getting 12-1 on this horse. When you see an Ortiz brother with Michael Maker, no way. But if you do, love the value for this horse to, hit the board or do something.
Yeah, could definitely come up based on that last and just getting a little bit extra distance. Spitestown Impractical Jokes usually run better sprinting, but Spitestown Mare could be definitely better going longer. I'm going 135. Charlie's going 3.610. Patrick actually has Clearly Copper on top, going 6.15.
So he picked Tribute.
And real quick, Patrick's best bets on the day are a race 6 double 4-4. And his best bet is the race number 10, the win on Clearly Coppers. So
wait. But in race 6, the 4 is out, right?
The 4 is out. Okay.
Oh, no, the 4 is in. Sorry,
right?
that's the one where everybody but the 4 scratched. I apologize.
Race 6.
He's good. He's good.
Yep, he is good. So you're screwing me up, man. You can't be doing that. 4-4 in a race on a win on Clearly Copper. Charlie, real quick, talk about your best bets on the day. Oh wait,
I think those are yours with my name.
I don't think so. That's just but go ahead, talk about your best bets real quick.
All right, so we're just gonna kind of audible them because one of them scratched. So for me, it's race 4. I have the 10 winning, which I didn't really cover because we didn't cover that race. So I'll just talk real quickly on that. So for race 4, the 10, I believe, picks up Tyler Gaffleone. Baba Voss freaked out and ran a 90 figure last time out, closed in a hot pace and came back to win. Has been working forwardly. You know, as we've talked about in this chat, Walsh and Gaffleone, when they work together, they normally do well. So I like that horse at a reasonable 7-2. Don't know if you'll get it. Then after that one, I'm going to audible is I'm going to do a double of race 6 into 7 with Patrick. I'm going to match that 4-4 double since I can no longer do my bet I was originally going to do because of the scratches, because the 9 is and race 9, the 4 is out. So that's going to be my other best bet is a double. The same one Patrick has, race 6 and the 4. So those are my 2 best bets for the card.
Sounds good, man. Good luck with yours. My best bets. I'm going with the win on the number 7 on race 7. I'm going with the win on number 4. Lady.
So we all got that horse.
Yeah, we do. And if I were to play a double, I'd play 4 with 9-10 into the next race. And race number 9, I talked about it at length on the show. A win on the number 5 via Reggio. I'm hoping that she gets the pace that she needs to run into and could run a big number, being low 90s, mid 90s, which would definitely be good enough to win that race. But everyone out there, good luck at Kentucky Downs. And tomorrow I want to give a quick shout out to some Howard put in the chat, but of course I also would like to shout it out. Tomorrow, last race at Colonial, the number 3 Shards is where Pete, Paul, myself, and of course Howard have a few shares of this one as well. 3-1 morning line. Good luck to all the boys with Crown's Way, and good luck to Shards. They think he's sitting on a big one, so hopefully Shards can get out of the gate and run really well for us tomorrow. Again, last race at Colonial on Thursday. But guys, again, thank you guys all so much for joining the show for the horse racing portion. I'm going to go into a little bit of college football and some NFL, so please don't go anywhere if you guys are interested. We are going to talk about the marquee matchups on Sunday for NFL Week 1, and we're going to talk about the marquee matchup on Saturday, the only good one, realistically, in college football. It is Alabama, Texas, which, really might not even be a good game, but we'll see. But again, thank you guys so much, everybody, for joining the show. But Charlie, we're going to pivot real quick, and we're going to bring up Texas Longhorns, obviously Alabama Crimson Tide. They're in Tuscaloosa, 6 p.m. on Saturday. The spread is pretty favored to Alabama here. I believe they're favored by a touchdown. Yeah, they are. They're -7, over under 53.5. Charlie, of course, you are the football guru, so I'm going to, of course, let you go first.
Yeah, so, this is why I will say to everybody, it is so important to watch the games happen the week before and take that time, because I'll be honest, I remember telling a bunch of my friends, because Quinn Ewers was supposed to be at Ohio State. I really hyped him up, and I said before we're going to see the games or spreads or anything, I was like, Alabama doesn't know who their quarterback is. Texas is going to win that game outright in Alabama. I was bold, and then I watched week 1 happen, and now I think Alabama is going to destroy Texas. I'm taking Alabama -7, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, both teams defensively look solid. Granted, they played nobodies. Alabama played Middle Tennessee State, who's really only known for beating Michigan State and Minnesota in college basketball. They're not known for anything in football, so that doesn't really help. However, Alabama's defense looked dominant, like I mentioned. Their quarterback played solid. We didn't really know for a while who was going to be named the quarterback, but ultimately they ended up going with, I believe, Jalen Milroe. Yeah, Jalen Milroe, that's his name. He played a very solid game. I just think this Alabama defense is going to make it a long
He played a solid, 20 minutes.
Right, but for as long as it lasted with 194 yards and 3 touchdowns, they looked all the bit of a legit team. And Texas looked terrible. I mean, I'll be honest, they did not look good. I have some friends that go to Texas. We were talking about it. They did not play good against an awful Rice team. I mean, the defense did all right. They stopped JT Daniels, who shout out the guy that's played at every college, in American I believe he's played for 75 different schools. They could not get the run game going at all. Their leading rusher only had 55 yards against a bad Rice team. Quinn Ewers had an okay game, I guess. But, going into Alabama, I think Texas was hoping they were going to romp Rice and gain confidence. Instead, they struggled and, needed to kind of put them away late with a dominant third quarter after only being up 16-3 at the half. So I think Alabama was going to kill them.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned at the start was, it might not even be a good game. Of course, it's the 3-11 marquee matchup and prime time on ESPN. But
and two huge programs with crazy fan bases.
Yeah, but sadly, I just don't know how much of a game this really can be. Texas looks shaky at best. Obviously,
Agreed.
Rice is not a bad team, but they're not up to snuff with these types of programs. So the fact that Texas had to struggle pretty hard with Rice now comes into Tuscaloosa to play Alabama. It's going to be a rough time, I think. For
it's a
them.
Former Saban assistant. Those don't usually.
The -7 looks a little juicy. The over 53.5. Alabama's defense looked good, but of course, I mean they can look good against anybody, not of a big program. But 53.5 could look pretty juicy in this game for me. But I'm probably going to end up taking that -7. I don't know how you feel about it, Charlie. Seeing it so low, I get it's 3-11 again, but seeing that only by a touchdown almost feels like a sucker to me.
I don't know. For me, I see it the other way around. I see a lot of delusional Texas fans and a lot of people believe in Quinn Ewers, which I get. The reason I'm staying away from the total is I actually think the butt they're trying to sucker you with is over under 53. I mean, we're talking about a Texas team who, even though they look terrible, still put up 37. An Alabama team that stopped trying after the first play of the game and put up 56. So I feel like, to me, this is an over under that should have been in the high 50s, maybe even around 60. So I feel like they're practically begging you to take this over. So for me, I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to play this game. If I do, I would be taking Alabama with the points, just, playing it simple, not taking a risk. I'm trying to look right now because I know it's something I did in the past, is checking if there's anything with the percentage of bets and what's moved with the spread. I mean, Bama moved a half a point in their favor and have 60% of bets, so that's, average. I want to check with the over-under. This is something that's interesting to me, is that actually it looks right now, at least, that, I mean, this is early, folks. Keep in mind, it's only Thursday, but the sharp money is on the under.
Yeah.
The sharp money is on the under, and people are betting the over. So for me, like I said, the obvious pick, for me, the sucker pick looks to take the over, and I get it. But for me, I would just take Alabama -7. I think they're begging you to take the over.
I mean, look, Charlie's looking at those websites. He has a really good hold on the betting markets for these type of games. Alabama -7 looks really juicy in a game like this. I think, like you said, they're trying to get people to take that over under, but -7 against a Texas team that looks shaky at best against Rice is definitely where I'd be looking in a game like this. But moving on to NFL opening weekend here, Charlie, and talk about the three games that we're going to talk about here are scrolling across the bottom. It is Miami, Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Chargers. Of course, we got to talk about Bears, Packers, and we're talking about Cowboys, Giants, which unfortunately the Giants guy ain't even here.
I know.
So he said maybe he'd get on by the end of the show, but
that's why I was excited that it went long. I was like, maybe we'll get him in for.
Honestly, that was my kind of hope, was going to be to get him on here, but we'll see if he gets on. We'll talk about that game last, but I think the most interesting game of the day is actually Miami, Los Angeles.
Agreed.
And you get these predictors on the ESPN, which actually are favorite in the Chargers camp for this game. 55% are going with the Chargers. This is at 3:25 on Sunday. And I mean, this is just a very good game with a lot of different ways you can go. LA is -3, Charlie.
Yeah, for me, this is the game of the week. I mean, you have the battle of which franchise got it right with the franchise quarterback, right? You have Tua Tagovailoa versus Justin Herbert, picked right apart, I believe, a pick apart from each other. Two teams with high expectations. The Chargers looked very solid last year, and finally, despite injuries, looked like they put it together. Were dominating the Jags on the road, and then had a massive playoff collapse. And then you have the Dolphins, who, with all their injuries, didn't really have a chance against the Bills, but are coming back strong. They make their big moves. in free agency. And this team, there were even talks originally at some point about Dalvin Cook. So, this seems like a team that obviously has big expectations. A lot of people putting pressure on their coach. I think these are two teams and coaches that kind of understand, like, look, we have to make the playoffs this year. And both of these teams think they could see each other again. This is definitely a statement game. This is one of the few games in week one where you're like, this could kind of set the tone for which team is, real playoff aspirations. And I know it's early. I will say the fact that the Chargers are at home and normally get made fun of for not having a good fan base means maybe this isn't really a home game. We'll see. I'm going with the Chargers. Look, the reality is Tua struggles to stay consistent, struggles to stay healthy. I trust Justin Herbert.
He's healthy and struggles to keep his brain inside his head.
Struggles to not have his O-line get him killed every game. I think the reality is the Chargers have horrible injury concerns. I think them and my Saints are the two teams that after one snap is taken, their entire teams break into two. But since the snap hasn't happened yet, the Chargers haven't broken into two yet. I think Brandon Staley is going to, understand that this is a big year where if he doesn't perform, they're done. Justin Herbert was injured for a ton of last year, which people didn't, a lot of people kind of just ignored. So I think now that he's healthy, they'll be good. I like the different moves they made in the offseason. I like the draft picks they made with Quentin Johnson, just bolstering up that receiving team, bringing back Eckler, who, after the contract issues is still playing. They got their O-line healthy again. The defense is healthy for now, and their secondary and D-line obviously look very strong. I just think the Chargers are the more well-rounded team, and I think the Dolphins kind of looked like they were going to be good last year when they weren't supposed to be, and now they have a lot of pressure, whereas the Chargers, I think, are the more proven team.
I almost feel like it's the same in that regard for both teams. Like both of these teams have a lot of pressure on them to perform. Because
Agreed,
I mean,
100%.
Like you said, Herbert didn't play a whole lot last year, but being that he's back now, they really expect him to be something special this year for the Chargers. And if they don't perform this year, I mean, realistically, you said it. This is the put up or shut up year for both of these teams. And
100%.
I was actually leaning the other way. I was actually leaning Dolphins with 3. I usually am a guy. I know people can make fun of me all they want. I usually buy the half point because
I do
field goal. I love to buy that half point. I just think I know the Chargers are at home, but I don't have a problem with Tua and company walking in there. Tyreek Hill, because the gritty man himself, Mike Gesicki. I really like Miami in a game like this where the Chargers don't really have the best secondary in the league where you can get a guy like Tyreek Hill to kind of exploit that a little bit, get a few big plays in there to put the Chargers in a tough spot early. But I mean, -3 is definitely a spread where you have to take there's no wishy-washing in this game. This just almost feels like either you feel really strongly about this game or you try to play or you try to take a stand somewhere else. But this is going to be a very good game nonetheless.
I do have an interesting stat. Real quick. Again, guys, keep in mind, it is only Wednesday. So I will say to take it with a grain of salt. But one thing that I think is very interesting is the Chargers opened at -2.5. They have 33% of bets and have moved to -3. So I just think that has to be something. That is substantial to have the fact that a third of the public is taking the Chargers, and yet they've moved to half point in favor. That means massive. Again, it's only Wednesday, but the initial early massive bets, all of them are on the Chargers right now. And again, I mean, look, this is going to be a great game. It's week one. It's obviously going to be unpredictable. I think these are two teams that we could see revisiting, competing in the AFC, which is as stacked as ever, by the way. The AFC is loaded. But I'm just going to stick with the Chargers. I think they're the more consistent, reliable team. I mean, the Chargers have been expected to be good for the past few years and just haven't been able to get the job done. Whereas the Dolphins, again, kind of just burst onto the scene last year. And I feel like whenever you have a team like that, you do have to be a little cautious because, you have to know, was that 1 year where they went from being awful every year to a borderline playoff or to a playoff team? Like, was that a legit year or was that a 1 year wonder? And, a lot of people said that about the Bengals with Joe Burrow, and then they went to the Super Bowl. So you never know. Sometimes it goes both ways. You have to wait and see. But
I wouldn't say Tua is necessarily sprouted into a Joe Burrow type talent by any means, although he is seeing 3 people a lot of the time. So hopefully that O-line is finally back and healthy, which it should be. The injury report, obviously there's 2 guys, Robert Jones, guards and IR still, and then Teron Armstead, who's questionable for this game. Yeah, but there are, and obviously the Chargers. Wow, dude. Like 3. Yeah, horse racing talk coming back. Sorry. The Chargers injury report is pretty clean for today, for Sunday's game. But especially for the Chargers. But good luck however you play in that game. The next game, we're going to go through these two pretty quick. being that they're not necessarily the marquee matchups, but we got to talk about Bears
For our
Packers
host, for the host.
in Chicago, of course, for the boys back home. This is the year where Justin Fields really needs to step up and take a part of this team.
He will.
I think he will as well, but the NFC North is, with the Packers losing Aaron Rodgers and going down that road. Obviously, the Lions have bolstered up a little bit. The Vikings are the what was the comment? The worst one, the worst double-digit win team in NFL history. I think.
The worst. And I was right, folks. I just want to point out they got beat up on by the Giants, and now they come back as the frauds that they are. The predictor shows this game is going to be close. You know what? Maybe it will, but to me, I need to wait and see with Jordan Love. I believe in Justin Fields with the team they have around him now. Obviously with Tevin Jenkins hurt, they're going to have to make some adjustments with the O-line, but I think they'll make it work. I'm taking the Bears -1.5. I don't care if anybody says it's biased. They gave the Packers a tough fight when they were supposed to be bad when they had Aaron Rodgers. I think the Bears could mess around and win this game by 50. I don't believe in this Packers team. I think that, a lot of people are trying to be like, oh, it's the legacy. It's the Packers. They'll figure it out. They own the Bears. But that was when it was Rodgers. Rodgers is gone. Devontae Adams is gone. The main people that you think of when you think Packers, the Smith guy is gone. I don't buy it. I think the Bears are going to come in and smoke them. I mean, realistically, because it is the NFL and not college, it'll probably end up being relatively close. But I just don't see a way in which the Bears don't get this job.
That would be effing blissful, by the way.
I think they're ready to make their big statement. I think that they understand they put the chips all in. They traded away the pick because they believe Fields is their guy, which he is. By the way, I boldly stated that Justin Fields would be a top 5 QB within the first 5 years of his career. And I said that the only way he wouldn't be is if the Bears mess him up. And I said I think he could win an MVP within his first 5 years. Now, I will say the market has been interesting. Right now it's 50-50, and the spread has moved a half a point away from the Bears. So, the early stuff is indicating slightly towards the bettors being towards the Packers. But what is interesting to me is that despite the over-under being 50-50, the over-under total has moved down 2 points. So that is of note. That is the one thing, folks, because I know we're going to mainly be biased and just talk about how the Bears are going to kill them. But if you are looking for the one sharp angle that's unbiased, folks, because in total has nothing to do with who we think is going to win. But do note that the total has moved down 2 points despite the fact that the public is on the over. So certainly that's where the big money shift has been in this game.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's 44.5 is already a pretty low total.
Yeah.
And getting down now 2 more points to 42.5, obviously with 2 pretty untested offenses, obviously Jordan Love being in now the pilot of the Green Bay Packers, and the Bears offense going 1-16 last year. So there's a lot of different, well, I'll tell you what, for the Bears, there's only one way, and that's up. If we go down, it's just over. Like there's nothing. If we go down from 1-16,
don't say that, because the Browns said that. Remember the Browns said that
whatever, dude.
If we're promised they wouldn't win one game and they won, they promised they wouldn't win one and they won none. So
well, I mean, hey, they were right, no? But
they
let's just hope they're not right about the Bears like that. But it's very interesting. 1.5. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to bet on this. I never bet with my heart. My heart obviously leans to the Bears way more than the Packers does. Well. But I sure hope that the Bears just walk into Soldier Field, get amped, smoke them 27-6, 27-10, be blissful. I don't see that happening. I think it's going to be a pretty close game, obviously, as the spread indicates. But the over-under is definitely where my money would be in this game. And I just don't know which way I'd go. This is my wishy-washy game. I kind of don't have a good opinion anywhere else.
I'm taking the Bears -1.5.
Bears, Charlie's Bears
I'll buy on that.
Hey, I love it, man. I love it completely. But Howard says he'd take the over in a heartbeat. The other team's defense is that good, and both will score. Wide receiver core and tight end is a bit underrated. 27-24 Green Bay. Ugh, God. The Bears. That's what I'm with, Rob. The Bears.
You got to think like they're like the host from that show when they'd say the Bears will win 200-2 or something. That's
what like Adam Rank when he says like the Bears are going to win 15
games. Oh, that was
bad,
or something like that. He was like the Bears are going to like 13-4. Come on now. Like I have faith in the Bears.
Hey, I'd love that.
Really could be. I think the Bears could surprise and be like, an 8-9, 9-8 team. I think that would be unbelievable from one win, but 13-4, like come on now.
And now the final game that we're going to cover real quick is America's team, Charlie. America's team going into MetLife Stadium against the Giants.
Cowgirls.
Again, they're Dallas is favored by 3.5, over under 46.5.
In New York as well.
In New York, and they're favored by that much against a Giants team that looked at really, pretty good last year. Now, with a lot more pressure on them to do well this year. Dallas minus 3.5. The matchup predictors is 55% to the Cowboys on ESPN, and the injury report is pretty clean for both teams. So Charlie, you're up, man. Where's where are you leaning in this type of stuff?
Yeah, so I was hoping, because this is the one that I feel the most wishy-washy about, that there was going to be a stat I could talk about and sell at the market, but maybe because it's Sunday Night Football, or maybe because it's two delusional fan bases both hammering either side, but there hasn't really been anything from the spread or over-under out of the 3 games. This is the only one where there's nothing really sharp-wise yet that's given me any indicators. And I will get to my team, Richard. It's complicated. I'll explain myself, and it's going to go rough. It's teams, and I'll take all the heat because I'm more loyal to my teams than anyone. I watch all of them. I know the whole rosters. Anyway, back to the game. I'm going to take the Giants. I don't even have to worry about buying the point. I'm going to take the plus 3.5. Will they win? Who knows? But I think they can keep within the field goal. I think the Cowboys are always hyped up. I think they're in big turmoil. I think they're panicking. I think a big reason they traded for Trey Lance is because they don't know if Dak's the guy, and this is his prove a year. They don't know if Mike McCarthy's the guy. I think they have a ton of questions. I think this Giants team is going to come in confident off of all their mediocrity to finally have a decent year. I think they're going to come in confident, not cocky, and kind of be like, look, we finally started the build towards something. Let's keep building on it. And I don't really know how the Cowboys are going to do under the bright lights with that big spotlight and all that pressure. So I'm going to take my chance with the Giants to cover. That's where I'm going to lean. What about you?
I mean, look, plus 3.5 is very enticing for a Giants team that looked very good last year and really has only bolstered up this past year. The Cowboys obviously have a lot of questions, and we all love to hate on the Cowboys. Everyone that's not a Cowboys fan loves to hate on the Cowboys. But it's really just a prove-it year for the Cowboys. For Dak, for Mike McCarthy, as you said, is everything. It's just it needs to be a prove-it year. And obviously they went after Trey Lance because maybe to just light a fire under Dak's ass or something like that, because they need him to stop. They need him to stop throwing picks is what they need him to stop doing. Yeah. But they just need a leader out there. It almost just seems like the Cowboys sometimes, they have a very good receiving core between Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. They have a really good attacking running back now. Obviously they got rid of Zeke, but they still have Tony Pollard. It's, the offense is there. The defense has always been a little shaky for the Cowboys, but they have the weapons to be good there. It's just a matter of, can they finally find that fire to take the division that should have been rightfully theirs for the past, 5 years, except last year. Obviously the Eagles have really, really bolstered up and they were the best team in the NFC last year. But before that, it was, all the talk of the Cowboys finally be good. And it just really just doesn't, it never seems to happen. So I don't disagree with you, Richard. I don't think they sucked last year by any means.
Yeah, they blew out the most
definitely outweighed expectations. Let's say that.
Yeah. They beat the most overrated double-digit win team ever on the road in the playoffs. So you know what? They did their thing. And then if we do have time, I do want to
go ahead. Rattle off your best bets real quick.
All right, so my real quick best bet, starting with NFL. This one, I know it's biased. I don't care. You can see the flag, folks, in the background. The Saints play a Titans team. I'm going to tell you why they're going to crush them. They don't have a quarterback, and the reality is they're a run-heavy team. The Saints defense takes pride in their run defense. Every year, they're one of the top run defenses in the league. They just can't stop the pass because they get PI, but I don't worry about Ryan Tannehill or Levis or who knows who their quarterbacks are. They have 10 mediocre quarterbacks who can't play the game on their side. The Saints finally have a good quarterback. They're healthy for the time being. I think they're going to go in at home. They have a good roster. Michael Thomas is healthy for now. I know they don't have Kamara, but they have Kendre Miller, who's a solid rookie that they drafted from TCU, and they have Jamal Williams, obviously, who's coming off of a career best year. I think the Saints might win that game by 50, and I'm not being biased. Flag has nothing to do with it. I truly think they're a matchup nightmare for the Titans. I will take that -3 any day of the week. I might even take an adjusted spread. I truly believe they will crush that team. Now, for college football, I wish Patrick could have heard this because he would have been stunned to hear me say this. I like Notre Dame -7.5 against NC State on the road. Sam Hartman is him. I think he's an underrated Heisman candidate. That defense looks incredible as always, but the offense finally looks legit this year. I think this is Notre Dame's best chance to get to the college football playoff and not make an embarrassment of themselves. They play an NC State team on the road who struggled against UConn, who's one of the worst teams ever. Yeah, but then they came back and won again. And regardless, they're playing an NC State team that struggled against UConn, who everybody knows is garbage at football. I think they'll kill them. Next, I'm taking the most begging me to take a bet, but I don't care. I'll take it. Colorado at home -3 against Nebraska. I know it's the most obvious pick in the world and they should be -7, but Nebraska always loses close games. So even if this game's close, they're going to lose. That Nebraska team is garbage. I actually did take them to cover against Minnesota, but that's just because at +7.5, I thought that'd be a one-possession game. Two of the worst teams in the Big Ten. Colorado beat up on a TCU team that had the hangover from the championship. I know that TCU team isn't as legit as the number indicated, but hey, on the road, that TCU team is still worlds better than Nebraska, who's garbage. So I think they'll cover. And then how about Tulane +7.5 at home against Ole Miss, who's won like 70-7 or something, but they played Mercer, who I didn't even know had a football team. All I know about Mercer is the white guy who did the cool dance moves when they upset Duke in March Madness. They're not a football school. So Tulane looked great against South Alabama, who is projected to win their conference. This is a great Tulane team. I thought they'd have their hangover from a big year, but they looked very legit. They're +7.5 at Ole Miss. And I'll tell you what, they're my underdog of the week. I think they might beat them outright. +7.5 and sprinkle on the money line. Those are the best bets, folks.
I'm about to create graphics for Charlie's underdog of the week. That's pretty good. But hey, I love it, Charlie. And Jim Pilars is coming after your ass now. He goes, Nebraska runs the ball down Colorado's throat and wins outright.
With what quarterback? They have 17 picks.
They don't have the quarterback to run the ball. They don't have to have a quarterback to run the ball. They could just run Wildcat out there. They could play Navy.
Indiana when they tried that. When the Indiana did that against Ohio State with their triple option through like 4 passes, they made our defense look good. And yeah, look, maybe Nebraska surprises me, but the reality is they're garbage. They're a poverty program. I wish they weren't in the Big Ten, and Colorado's going to beat them senseless. That's what's going to happen, folks. I'm just telling you. Deion's going to come in. He's going to go play my theme music. They're going to be vibing. They're going to go with that pregame speech and destroy.
Dude, if Deion
also
does
Rob,
that,
that's a shout. I like Rob saying that. I loved Utah against Florida. I had them against Florida, but I think 100% that everyone and their mother is going to put $1 million on Utah to kill Baylor, since they just lost at home to Texas State or something, which was a major upset. I think anybody is going to assume that Utah beat them by 100. So the fact that they're +8, I agree. I think everybody's going to hammer Baylor. That was one that I thought about putting on. So I like that we do have sharp viewers, not just for horse racing, but for football too. Love to see that, Rob.
Absolutely. You. And a lot of people stayed on through the football.
Yeah, appreciate it. The viewership held up. I love that.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's just because I'm so explosive.
Yeah, that's it. It's always you, Charlie. It's never anybody else. It's always
I think someone's just hoping for me to have a bust a gasket and then be able to clip it and then make fun of me in case I'm wrong. Or don't clip what I say.
This is great, dude. I'll end with one more thing, dude. Is Jim Pilars saying how he loves how Charlie can change his opinion mid-sentence without changing conviction. That's the best thing I've ever heard, because that's exactly correct. He says one thing, and like if someone he's like, he obviously still agrees with what he said originally, but then he's like, that wouldn't be that bad, but he always sounds extremely confident no matter what he does. So Jim, that's a great one. For the last comment, that for Jim will, as he said, he won't be here in evenings for a while. He'll watch obviously later, but Jim, that's a good one to end off, my friend, for all the teasing and stuff. That's a great one to end off on. But guys, again, thank you guys so much for joining in and staying on with us through the first week of the NFL, college football, and everything else. Good luck at Kentucky Downs. Good luck this Saturday with college football. And, of course, good luck at week 1 and the NFL on Thursday, Sunday, and, of course, Monday Night Football. Take care, everybody, and crush your bets.